Okay, good morning everybody, and thank you all for attending. As Dermot says, and I wasn't writing that report on my own, may I add, there are other people in this room who also wrote that report, but thank you very much for the kind introductions, and the report is certainly sort of punching above its weight in Wales, and through the work that the team has been doing at the Institute is also being taken into the rest of the world. I know it's been received well in England, in Whitehall, for example. So the work of the Institute just doesn't stop with that report. There's so many other things that we're doing, and today and the rest of the week is just bringing all these jigsaw puzzles together and meeting people like yourselves in this particular session. So as the title suggests, it's quite an ambitious day to bring all you speakers, I can see you dotted around the room, all in one place, all from different countries, all to discuss the merits and disadvantages, pros and cons of how your countries work and how they interact with each other. Some with more agendas than others, some with less agendas, and I think it's just going to be fascinating from my point of view. And I will certainly sit on the fence and just listen to what you leaders have to say in terms of how your countries are going. It's going to truly be a fascinating event. So to set the context really, this event aims to explore cross-border procurement by examining trade relations between all those countries that you see in front of you. For those BRIC countries, this is the Brazil, the Russia, India, China, and I should say us BRICS as being the South Africa as well. So this is where we're trying to get to today, and we could have set this up with another range of countries, but we're looking at more sort of the emerging markets and maybe a few developed economies as well at the same time. So that's where that is the purpose of today. Let's see what's happening elsewhere in the world, and let's see if we can bring that back to educate us all about what we can do in Wales better. The event aims to explore cross-border procurement, and that really is its kind of main goal then really. So we've only got 7 hours, so really to gain an advanced understanding of global economics is really is not going to happen, but this is going to be pitched at a high level. It's going to be pitched at educating about what is happening in the world, and that's the message today. So I'm just trying to give you expectations about what you can expect during the day. So we're never going to go through the whole global economics in 7 hours, but we're going to give it a good shot. And I know our speakers have come up with some very interesting topics and presentations to give to you today. So, and we hope that if there are organizations in this room, that they'll hopefully be able to compete better for contracts outside the region. As Dermot says, my interest lies with helping SMEs improve, win contracts, get better in Wales, in England, and the rest of the world. So again, seeing what happens in the rest of the world is of huge importance to my work, to Dermot's work, to Kerry's and Amma and many of my colleagues in this room here today. So really a lot of the work that I and the team have been doing is look at it from a company or firm perspective. Sort of really what is out there, and what can a company do to kind of respond to what's happening within the global market. So to sort of summarize really, this is a three sort of, whether you're in any business, whether you're in a government department or whether you're a business leader in the private sector, this is pretty much your three modus operandi in terms of how you're going to go about running your business. So spotting opportunities, whether they're at home, abroad, in the next county, the next country, is obviously a key attribute. Acting on them, getting employees engaged. Obviously you've got to act on them, you've got to get your team, your staff, the people around you to actually be involved. And if you're going to work in another country, are you cold? Do you need this window closed? Or? Okay. And acting on them is of huge importance, really, in terms of getting people interested in going into another market, into another region of the world. And obviously legitimizing them, getting your stakeholders on board. So going into a new market, going into a new country is obviously going to take a lot more than just your mindset. So setting up your firm or your company is obviously going to be a huge task then, really. And to sort of follow on from those kind of three steps, then really, the Harvard Business Review has specified sort of 5 distinct areas to help you go into the sort of cross-border procurement and to help your business grow. So one of those, you can read the list of 5 there in front of you, but obviously increasing volumes and margins is another key idea, to go into another market. by going into another market, you're obviously diversifying your revenue streams, and you're also spreading the risk as well of your organization. So if one market seems to be on the rise and another market falls, and you're involved in both, then as a company leader, your risk is kind of spreading between this. And this is the same within Wales, within England, Ireland, and Scotland. And again, it's happening all through the world, and really. So we want to look at entering new markets, expanding your global reach, and accessing new products, technologies, and skills. Based upon the work that we're doing and the work that we're involved in the Institute, we do collaborate with quite a lot of people. And just getting these new minds, these new brains, these new ideas, especially from the people that have come so far today, is obviously a key importance to us. We want to learn about what is going on out there so we can bring it back to our mindset, so we can change the way that we go about working and sort of influence the way that things are happening within Wales and obviously the rest of the world. And hopefully, with our colleagues here today, we can actually tell you what is happening in Wales, and maybe there's some ideas, or the UK, that you can take back to your country as well. A sort of a catch-all statement, but the European Commission conducted a survey back in 2010 and 2011, which measured how companies are responding to the crisis, really, post 2008, 2009. And their kind of summary was the companies were capable of thinking faster, quicker, and communicating better, and that was the key point, were the ones that were weathering the economic storm. So these are the ones that were thriving above all else, and they were the ones that were pursuing new markets, new opportunities, whether they be public contracts or private contracts in various parts of the region. So that was kind of the headline statement for that. Now, in terms of opportunities, there are two sets of drivers for a company leader to engage different types of markets. So the first one being the external drivers. So why would I go out to another region? What is the importance of going out to another region, and how can I do that successfully? And I interviewed a company in the south of England, specifically on a wind energy project, and they were trying to get their technologies into the US, for example. And again, there was many barriers in the way, there was many opportunities in the way, but they were able to successfully collaborate with another firm on the east coast of America, down in Virginia that way, to see how they could somehow bypass some of these laws and legislations, if you like, whether they could have better business taxes and they could improve their supply chains by looking at this cross-border interest, if you like, in this particular industry. And this is just one industry. There are many examples, and I'm sure my colleagues can kind of add to these later on. In terms of other external drivers, there's obviously market demand and trends. There's obviously trends that are happening out in the world that's pushing companies to explore that. So energy is obviously a major one. You've obviously got iCloud technology, or information technology is another driver to be pushing international markets and for companies to be interested and to engage in with it, really. Okay, as I've said, the reasons why you might want to consider going outside your border, whether this be outside Gwynedd or outside Wales or outside the UK or even outside Brazil or Russia, as I said, is to manage sort of the corporate risks of the company. If your company is looking to kind of spread its wings, if you like, this will allow them to kind of diversify their revenue streams and to sort of balance risks of certain markets. So again, just trying to think outside the box, trying to think that there's not just your own market that you should be interested in, that there are new affluent markets. We could have brought an Australian and New Zealand here today to explain what is happening down in the southern hemisphere of the country, to see how they could relate to this sort of conversation and how they're responding to sort of the global and economic challenges. Okay. When looking at this from a business perspective, we looked at many multinationals, and we asked these multinationals what were they doing to evaluate how important an international market was. And for example, companies like Siemens, Mott MacDonald, Frost & Sullivan, Hitachi, sort of buzzword bingo, but name dropping a little bit, this is what they will go through before they even consider going into a new international market. They will do this either systematically, they'll do this through their board of directors, they may do this through consultations, but they will use one of the 8 points that you see in front of you as a tool to engage with an international market. Some will use things more often than others. So, for example, the last one was political stability in terms of corruption index. There's obviously a world corruption index. Well, for example, Mott MacDonald uses quite extensively in choosing which area of the world that they want to work with. Siemens do exactly the same. They will also pick out areas of the world that will obviously generate more profitability, item 1 there, and the likelihood of success. And the likelihood of success is obviously based on a number of variables then, really. Okay. So trading within the EU. Now, I'm not going to go into a huge amount of this because one of our speakers later on this afternoon will go into this in a little bit more detail. But I just want to give you a taste of things that's probably going to come and some of the work that we've been involved in here at the Institute. Now, to go into a new market or to enter a new market, as you say, cross-border collaboration is a key way of trying to achieve that. It encourages free trade or encourages the movements of goods and services, and it also promotes the use of innovative global solutions. So again, going back to a point I made earlier, new skills, new ideas, new innovations, and tomorrow is going to be a perfect example of how collaborative partnerships work, because we're going to be discussing innovations tomorrow. But by working together, and hopefully like we work together today, we can end this session and we can end this with some more ideas about how we can work better and how we can achieve more by working together better. Now, bidding for work collaboratively, I think this is a very key stat for those who are interested in working abroad. You can either work together to achieve something, and if you work together, the stats say that you are 11% more likely to win something abroad. If you try and achieve this as a single entity and you try to go to another country to win that piece of work, your chances of winning are between 1 and 2%. And this is mainly in the EU, so I can't comment for other nations and the relationships there. Maybe Stephen can comment in terms of how the EU is working with the US and what the relationships are between the EU and the US. But for organizations interested in thinking, well, how can I get to another market? Well, your first thought process should be, who can I find locally that can help me and help me grow and develop? Because again, your chances of success are greatly increased. Now, there are trends, there are economic trends within the EU that kind of help businesses grow and help businesses develop. Now, as it says at the title there, direct cross-border procurement tends to be more successful if they're from a neighbouring country. So, for example, in Wales, we always have this argument that a Welsh business gets lost to England. 49% of it gets lost to England. And we heard at the start of the week that certain parties or certain agendas want to push this figure up into the high 60s or 70s. Well, from my point of view, and this is my personal opinion, I think that just holds problems, many problems. There are comparative advantages of working both at home and abroad. And I think if you start pushing agendas or numbers onto increasing the Welsh levels, if you like, you may start skewing your own internal markets and you might actually be starting to force out innovations. So while these numbers, they're in numbers order, as you can see the highest is 82, but my point here is that the Wales-England relationship is something that can't be really addressed by numbers. It really is based upon the supply chain that's available within that area and whether England can is coming across the border. And I suppose the lessons learned from this session is to try and get Welsh companies to win work elsewhere and really stop complaining, I suppose. Look, we can go and win work elsewhere. Why do we have to complain about people coming to steal these contracts? Let's go and do it, and let's grab these contracts for ourselves. So these 5 bullet points here, 1, 2, 3, there's 6, I'm afraid, 6 bullet points here, is just showing where contracts are coming from Europe into the UK. So for example, out of the contracts that leave Cyprus, now I know Cyprus is not a neighbouring country, but due to historical reasons, 82% of contracts that leave Cyprus come directly into the UK. The same is true for Ireland. Now, they are a neighbour, and this is not an exception to the rule. 75% out of the 20% of contracts that they advertise, 20% I think is about an £8 billion market. You can correct me if I'm wrong. 20% of £8 billion comes through Dublin. It makes its way probably past Wales, and it goes directly into London. There is no filter. The filter is quite weak in terms of how Welsh business is responding to this. But again, these are UK figures, so Welsh figures for these are they're just not available. There's not enough information to sort of quantify this. But again, if you were interested in these markets and you were interested in exploring these markets or developing these markets, these are really the sort of the top 7 partners that the UK is kind of working with in terms of its sort of cross-border public procurement. So again, no surprise, so Spain, France, Netherlands, the sort of big spenders, and obviously Latvia and Bulgaria at the bottom. I say 0%, it's probably like 0.11 or something small. Okay, so on this particular map, this is just a map of Europe. It's just to break up the text a little bit, to be honest. But I could have drawn all sorts of arrows. I could have drawn all sorts of arrows to show you how economics is working and how this is all being shaped. And I could say, well, a lot of money is leaving from here to go to here. A lot of money is leaving here to go to here, and so on and so forth. And all the way down the bottom here, you'll have Malta and Cyprus. And somehow a lot of money is going from there and bypassing all of these and coming here as well. But to keep your developmental international hat on, if you were based here, well, you know that there's good relationships happening in various parts of these world. It's how we go about exploring them. And again, there's a whole other bit of this map that I'm obviously missing in terms of our partners here today. But that same type of thought process can be applied. And the reasons for the barriers that are in the way can obviously be overcome. Now, again, this slide is purely for the businesses in the room. If you're interested in accessing these markets, these are your first port of call, really. These are the links that you can kind of do it. So if you want to pick this presentation up off the website at a later date, have a look at it, whatever slide that number is, you can just go directly to those links and you can kind of access these markets from there. These are the big 7, but there are 27 member states, and I could have put a huge list up there. Okay, when I mentioned earlier on about the EU sampling around 1,500 companies about what they were doing in terms of cross-border procurement barriers, these were the top 7 that were outlined as problems in terms of engaging another country. So language barriers, that was number 1. Unsurprisingly, even within the EU, there are several language even North-South Wales, you could argue, sometimes it feels like a separate language, but we have all these separate languages, but the power of the internet is obviously taking some of these barriers away from us. Competition from local or national bidders is obviously another one, and again, I could go through that list and explain to it, but these are ranked, so these were the most common problems that a business would face, or a business leader may face in terms of engaging another country. We've proved here today that we can bring in people from all over the world. We all share an international language, and we can all work together to achieve a single common goal. But based on the list, however, I truly believe, and maybe hopefully our colleagues here today will say that sort of to prevent true cross-border or sort of global trade, I really believe it's in the mindset of those who are in power. And it's exploring those mindsets today. That's my real goal, and that's our real challenge, to see what can we learn from each other and see how we can develop this a little bit more. And I'm really interested in this, and I hope to learn a lot from everybody else here today, like you, I guess. And I said that to bridge that gap, obviously the internet, social networks. I can't remember how many people out of the delegates that I've got here today that I simply met on LinkedIn, or I simply bumped into them on a page somewhere and literally just invited them because I was interested in the words that they were saying. And this can happen in everyday life, everyday walk of life. And LinkedIn is a great tool for doing this. Now, I met this chap in a tube station in Japan. And these were everywhere, these little signs. And I don't know if you can see, it's pretty bad writing. This is the best picture I had. But it kind of said, stay out of here. And I just think really that is kind of the wrong attitude to have. And this guy was everywhere, and he just fascinated me. So I just had a quick snap. This was taken back in like 2008, 2007. So really global problems require global solutions, and we really kind of, that's what I'm trying to get at. And again, we're going to hear more about that later. So there's nothing new really in terms of this slide, in terms of what you already know. You already know that we're going through a particular financial crisis right now. One of our speakers unfortunately pulled out this later on this afternoon because of what is happening in Cyprus. So these are the things that are happening in the news right now. And again, this is a personal kind of really is free trade should be encouraged. It should be the mechanism that kind of sparks the economy back in life, and encouraging this free trade of movement of goods is obviously a way around things. Now, earlier in the year, we heard about government protectionist strategies or protecting their own market. But again, I just think we should be kind of promoting that in terms of how we should be working together. Now, in terms of indirect cross-border, now I mentioned direct a little bit moment, and direct is you personally going into another market. But again, why our colleagues are here today? As you can see from the top bullet point, 60% of all indirect, this is you working with another partner, is actually awarded to an economic operator in another member state, so in the same particular region. However, 40% of the contracts within the EU, when a partner is involved, actually leak out and go to another country, or leak out or get spread, the wealth is spread. And 24%, Steve will confirm or deny this a little bit later, but around 24% of this is kind of going directly into the US. Another gets dotted out to Russia, to Brazil, to China, and so on and so forth. Okay. During the course of the day, for those who don't know, you'll be probably hearing things like the government procurement agreement. You'll be hearing from World Trade Organizations. You'll be hearing things about restrictive measures, i.e. tariff and non-tariff barriers or barriers to engagement. And we'll have all of these topics discussed in a little bit more detail by all our members, all our speakers a little bit later on. But in essence, the government procurement agreement is an agreement that really makes public procurement transparent and competitive to a globalized audience. And it's really making those opportunities available. So if countries have agreed to this or signed up, and some more so than others, even within the countries we've got represented here, it really is an agreement that where a contract or an opportunity has a cross-border interest, and if they've signed up to this agreement, then those opportunities can be made available. Now, just to kind of give you context in terms of the partners, and I said we could have set up this particular day by looking at some of the Asian countries or some of the Civets, Colombia, India, Vietnam, Egypt, Turkey, South Africa. We could have looked at various different markets and various things that's happening within the market. But as it says there, these are just to introduce some of our partners and the reason really why they're here today. Well, the EU is Brazil's first trading partner. I won't read them all, I'll pick out every other one. The EU-India trades grew pretty much by 3 times really in the space of 8 years. South Africa's, the exports between here and South Africa is dominated by machinery, transport equipment, chemical and other machinery. So again, there is great reasons to why we're here today, and it's really to explore those in a lot more detail. And I hope, me for one, I'm really looking forward to everybody's contribution to that sort of agenda to see how we can kind of get to it. So I really hope that sets the context, sets out the expectations, and again, I'm really looking forward to the presenters that come during the rest of the day. So thank you very much.